Gia? He called softly. It's safe, I'm alone. She stepped out cautiously. How did you find me? How did you escape the council? Taiho helped me, Do-hyun explained, his colors shifting with excitement. He told the council he forced you to help him, taking responsibility for everything. They're watching him, but they believed him enough to release me. Do-hyun wasn't alone, she soon discovered. 5 other young Morians waited nearby. They all shared his curiosity about human knowledge and dissatisfaction with the council's rigid ways. We found a safe place, Do-hyun told her. An old cave system the elders have forgotten about. The cave was larger than Gia expected, with rooms formed by natural crystal growths. Over the next few weeks, more Morians arrived, mostly younger ones who questioned the old ways. Gia showed them the data she had saved. Human science approaches problems differently than Morian ways, she explained. We ask questions, test ideas, and build on what works. The Morians found this fascinating. They had been taught to accept the traditional methods without question. Now they brought Gia problems that their society had failed to solve. Using the small data device, Gia taught them human scientific methods while they taught her more about Morian empathic abilities and biotechnology. Together, they created new medicines and tools that combined both approaches. Humans look outward for answers. One young Morian named Suna observed. We look inward. Together we see the whole picture. Word of their discoveries began to spread. When a child in a nearby village fell ill with a disease the Morian healers couldn't cure, desperate parents sought out the forest dwellers. The Akai, medicine Gia and her friends created, saved the child. Soon people from across Morian territories came seeking help. Each success brought more followers to their growing community. 6 months after Gia's escape, Taiho appeared at their cave. His health had improved thanks to the medicine Gia had left behind. The council knows what you're doing, he warned. They call it corruption of our ways, but many ordinary people have seen the benefits of your new ideas. Taiho shared news that shocked Gia. The rigid Morian society was splitting. Many younger Morians questioned why the council had hidden knowledge of other species and technologies. Why had they been taught that change was dangerous? The council has called for your capture, Taiho said. They claim you've brought division to our peaceful world. That evening, Do-hyun found Gia sitting alone, watching the triple moon rise through a gap in the cave ceiling. Are you having doubts, Ai? He asked, his thoughts gentle in her mind. I didn't mean to cause a revolution, she admitted. I just wanted to help Taiho. Ideas are powerful, Do-hyun said. Once people see a better way as possible, they can't unsee it. The next morning, council enforcers found their cave. As they approached, Taiho walked out to meet them. Standing, tall despite his age, he addressed not just the enforcers but the crowd of ordinary Morians who had followed them. This human child saved my life with knowledge our council would keep hidden, he announced, his voice and thoughts projected for all to hear. For 10 years she has lived among us, learning our ways while remembering her own. She represents not corruption but growth, the crowd murmured. Many had benefited from the new medicines. The lead enforcer stepped forward. The council has preserved our way of life for thousands of years. This human brings chaos and change. Perhaps, said an elder in the crowd, it is time for change. As arguments broke out, Gia realized that Morian society had reached a breaking point. The council's fear of outside influence had kept them static for too long. Now that new ideas had been planted, there would be no going back. That night, as Gia and her friends prepared to move to a new hiding place, a messenger arrived with news that would change everything. The council had revealed that they had long known about other intelligent species nearby, but had deliberately kept this knowledge from their people. The revolution of ideas had begun, and Gia was at its center. Here's the 5th part of your story in simple third-person style. A human child was left behind on an alien world, and she grew up to rewrite history. Civil war loomed over Moria. The council's forces gathered outside, the crystal forest where Gia and her followers had made their camp. Thousands of Morians stood divided. Those who followed the old ways faced those who embraced change. Gia stood on a ridge overlooking both groups. At 26, she had spent most of her life on this alien world. Beside her stood Do-hyun, whose shimmering skin had grown brighter with the passing years. There must be a way to avoid bloodshed, Gia said quietly. For months they had worked in secret on their most ambitious project yet, a device that combined human communication technology with Morian empathic abilities. If it worked, it could connect thousands of minds at once, allowing for shared understanding on a scale never before possible. It's ready, Suna said, approaching with a glowing crystal sphere. But we've never tested it with more than 20 people. Using it on thousands could be dangerous. Gia nodded. I'll be the center point. My mind can serve as the bridge between all others. Do-hyun's colors darkened with worry. The strain could kill you. If we do nothing, many will die tomorrow, Gia replied. This is worth the risk. That night, they placed the device on the highest crystal formation in the forest. As the three moons aligned, a rare event, Gia placed her hands on the sphere. It began to pulse with light that spread outward in waves. Across the valley, Morians on both sides felt a gentle touch in their minds, not intrusive, but inviting. Those who accepted found themselves connected to a vast network of consciousness, with Gia at its center. Through her, they shared experiences. The traditionalists felt the excitement of discovery that Gia's followers had experienced. The revolutionaries understood the deep love for tradition that motivated the council. And all of them experienced what it meant to be human through Gia's memories, the wonder, the loneliness, the endless drive to explore and understand. For one night they were united. When morning came and the connection faded, both sides were changed. The rigid boundaries between them had softened. In the weeks that followed, a new form of governance emerged. The old council was dissolved, replaced by a group that included both elders and younger voices. They decided to preserve Morian culture while embracing controlled innovation and carefully opening relations with other worlds. Years passed. Gia had survived the mental connection, but it had aged her beyond her years. Her hair had turned silver, though she was only in her 50s. The hybrid technology she had helped create spread throughout Morian society, bringing advancements in medicine, agriculture, and communication. On a warm afternoon, as Gia sat in the garden of her home in the mountains, Do-hyun, now a respected elder, brought news. Ships have been detected entering our solar system, he said. They appear to be human. Gia felt her heart race. After all these years, her people had returned. The human colony had been one of the first attempts at space exploration. Earth had likely assumed all was lost when the evacuation ships returned, with tales of disaster. Now, nearly 50 years later, humans had developed faster ships and better technology. They had picked up the strange signals from Moria, signals created by the hybrid communication systems Gia had helped design. On the day the human ships landed, thousands gathered at the landing site. The new Morian leaders stood ready to greet them, with Gia slightly behind. When the doors opened and the first humans stepped out, they stared in wonder at the advanced civilization before them. They had expected to find either an empty world or primitive aliens. Instead, they found a society more advanced than their own. An older human woman stepped forward, introducing herself as the expedition leader. Her eyes widened when Gia moved to the front. I'm Gia Kim, she said, speaking human language for the first time in decades. I was left behind during the evacuation of the first colony. The humans were stunned. Records of the lost child had faded into legend over the years. That night, as human and Morian leaders began formal discussions, Gia stood at the edge of the gathering. Her life had bridged two worlds, creating something entirely new. She had not just survived on an alien world, she had helped transform it. Do-hyun joined her, his aged skin still shimmering in the moonlight. You rewrote our history, he said, his thoughts warm in her mind. Gia smiled. We did it together, humans and Morians. As the triple moons rose over the gathering of two species, Gia felt a sense of completion. The abandoned child had found her purpose, bringing together the best of two civilizations and changing the course of galactic history. The end. I am Hoon of the Council, he announced both aloud and mentally. Humans left our world years ago. Explain yourself. Gia stood straight, trying to look brave. I was left behind during the evacuation. An elder named Taiho found me and raised me. Now he's sick and I need medicine for him. Whispers spread through the crowd. The name Taiho seemed to cause a stir. From the edge of the gathering, a younger Morian pushed forward. He was different from the others. His colors shifted more quickly, and his eyes held a spark of curiosity rather than fear. Let me help her, he said to Hoon. My studies include the old knowledge of healing. Hoon looked displeased but nodded shortly. Do-hyun, you will be responsible for this human. Ensure she causes no trouble. Report to the council tomorrow. As the crowd dispersed, Do-hyun approached Gia. You've lived with Taeho all these years? His thoughts asked with wonder. The famous rebel who questioned the council's wisdom? Gia nodded, surprised to hear Taeho described this way. I have many questions, Do-hyun continued. About humans, about your ways of thinking. But first, let's get medicine for Taeho. For the first time since leaving the mountain, Gia felt a spark of hope. Perhaps she had found a friend in this strange city of light and crystal. Taiho's condition grew worse despite the medicine Do-hyun had provided. The old Morian's skin had lost almost all its shimmer, and his thoughts came through their mental link weaker each day. Gia sat by his side, feeling helpless. There must be something more we can do, she said to Do-hyun, who had been visiting them regularly since their meeting in the city. Do-hyun's colors shifted to deep blue, a sign of sadness. Our healers have tried everything they know. This illness affects many elders. We have no cure. Gia paced around the small mountain home. What about human medicine? The colony had advanced medical equipment. The council ordered everything, destroyed after the humans left, Do-hyun explained. They feared your technology would corrupt our ways. But Gia remembered something from her childhood, a secret her father had told her about. Not everything, she said. My father mentioned a backup facility hidden beneath the main lab. The council might not know about it. Do-hyun's colors brightened with interest. That would be against council rules to investigate. Are you afraid? Gia asked. Curious, he replied, his thoughts warm in her mind. Different ways of solving problems interest me. The next day, they journeyed to the abandoned human colony. 10 years of Morian weather had changed the once shiny buildings. Plants grew through cracks in the walls and small animals had made homes inside. Gia led Do-hyun to what had been the main laboratory. Most equipment was gone or broken, but she remembered her father's words. Look for a floor panel with a blue triangle, she told Do-hyun. They searched for hours until Do-hyun called out. Under a fallen cabinet, they found the panel. Together, they pulled it open, revealing a ladder leading down into darkness. Gia went first, using a light crystal Do-hyun had brought. At the bottom was a small room filled with dust-covered machines. In the center stood a round device with a dark screen. What is it? Do-hyun asked. An AI database, Gia said, running her hands over the familiar human technology. If it still works, it contains all human medical knowledge, and much more. She pressed what she hoped was the power button. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, the screen lit up with blue light. Hello, said a calm voice. Emergency backup database online. How may I assist you? Gia almost cried at hearing a human-made voice after so many years. With the AI's help, they searched for information about Taiho's illness. The database called it cellular degradation and suggested treatments using human medical technology. But, as they worked, Gia noticed something strange. These Morian biological systems are incredibly advanced, she said, looking at Do-hyun's scans compared to human medical data. Your bodies naturally do things our most advanced technology struggles with. Do-hyun's thoughts showed confusion. But we cannot cure this simple illness. Because you've stopped looking for new solutions, Gia realized. The database says your people haven't changed your medical practices in over 1,000 years. They worked through the night, with Gia applying human scientific methods to Morian biology. By morning, they had created something new, a treatment that combined human pharmaceutical knowledge with Morian natural compounds. This might save Taiho, Gia said, holding a small vial of glowing liquid. But it's more than that. It's proof that our different ways of thinking can work together. As they prepared to leave, Do-hyun touched the database. Your people's knowledge, it's so different from ours. We focus on living with nature, but you seek to understand and change it. Both approaches have value, Gia said. Together they could be powerful. They returned to Taiho with the new medicine. For 3 days they watched over him as his color slowly began to return. On the 4th day, as Taiho sat up for the first time in weeks, the door burst open. Council enforcers stood there, their skin flashing with angry red patterns. Gia Kim, the leader said, "You are charged with practicing forbidden arts and corrupting our citizens. The human database has been seized." Do-hyun stepped forward. "She saved an elder's life with knowledge your council would have left buried. You will be judged as well, Do-hyun," the enforcer said coldly. "The human will come with us now." Taiho's weak thoughts touched Gia's mind. "Run, child. The crystal forest. Others will help you." As the enforcers moved forward, Gia grabbed the remaining medicine and slipped through the back window. Behind her, she heard Do-hyun creating a distraction. She ran toward the forest, knowing her life on Moria had changed forever. But in her mind was a new purpose. The database had shown her a path that could transform both her world and Taiho's. Gia ran deeper into the crystal forest than she had ever gone before. The tall formations glowed around her, lighting her path as darkness fell. She had only the clothes on her back, the medicine for Taiho, and the small data device she had managed to download some information onto before fleeing. For 3 days, she moved carefully, using the skills Taiho had taught her to find food and stay hidden. On the 4th day, she heard someone approaching. Ducking behind a large crystal, she watched as Do-hyun emerged into the clearing. Here's the first part of your story in about 800 words, written in simple third-person style with basic English. A human child was left behind on an alien world, and she grew up to rewrite history. The emergency alarm echoed through the metal halls of the human colony. Red lights flashed as people ran in every direction. It was the 3rd day on planet Moria, and everything had gone wrong. 6-year-old Gia Kim held her stuffed rabbit tight against her chest. Her small fingers gripped the toy as if it could save her. Around her, adults shouted and pushed toward the evacuation ships. "Stay right here by this wall, Gia," her mother had said. "Count to 100, I'll be back with your father." Gia had counted to 100 3 times now. Her parents hadn't returned. A loud boom shook the ground. Part of the ceiling fell nearby. Scared and alone, Gia ran away from the falling debris. She didn't know where to go, but her legs carried her down an empty hallway and through a small door that led outside. The air of Moria felt thick and smelled like cinnamon. 2 purple moons hung in the orange sky. Gia had never been outside the colony dome without her special breathing mask, but in the rush, no one had given her one. Surprisingly, she could breathe just fine. In the distance, she saw the big ships lifting off. 1, 2, 3 ships rose into the sky, leaving trails of white smoke behind them. "Wait," she called, running toward them. "Wait for me." Her foot caught on a rock, and she tumbled down a steep slope. When she finally stopped rolling, she was at the bottom of a deep ravine. The fall hadn't hurt her much, but climbing back up proved impossible for her small body. From her spot in the ravine, Gia watched the last human ships grow smaller and smaller until they were just dots in the orange sky. Then they were gone. Tears streamed down her face as night fell. The strange plants around her began to glow blue and green in the darkness. Hungry and cold, Gia curled up with her rabbit under a large leaf. "They'll come back tomorrow," she whispered to her toy. "They just forgot us. They'll notice I'm missing when they count everyone." But deep down, Gia knew the truth. In the chaos, Someone had probably marked her as safe on a ship. No one would come looking for one small girl. Morning came with a bright red sun. Gia's throat felt dry. She remembered her teacher saying that the blue fruits on Moria were safe for humans. Finding a bush with round blue berries, she ate until her hunger faded. For 3 days, Gia wandered near the empty colony buildings. She slept in different spots each night, afraid of the strange sounds that came from the crystal forests beyond the settlement. On the 4th day, she saw something moving near the edge of the forest. It wasn't human. The creature stood much taller than any person, with skin that shimmered like an opal in the sunlight. Its forearms moved gracefully as it examined plants along the forest edge. Gia had seen pictures of the Morians before. The aliens who called this planet home had agreed to let humans study part of their world, but they mostly kept to themselves. This was the first real one she had ever seen. The Morian turned suddenly, looking directly at her. Its large eyes, completely black, seemed to stare into her soul. Gia froze, clutching her rabbit. The alien approached slowly, making soft clicking sounds. When it reached her, it knelt down to her level. One long finger gently touched her cheek where tears had dried. A strange feeling filled Gia's mind, like someone had opened a door in her head. She somehow knew the Morian's name was Taiho, and he was very old for his kind. Lost little star, Taiho's thoughts seemed to say in her mind. Far from home? Gia nodded, fresh tears forming. They left me behind. Taiho looked toward the abandoned colony and then back at the small human child. The Morian Council had strict rules about interaction with other species. He should report finding her immediately, but something about the small creature touched his heart. In his long life, Taiho had grown tired of the rigid ways of his people. Perhaps this was why he had been walking alone so far from the Morian city. Come, he thought to her, extending a hand. Food, shelter. Gia hesitated only briefly before taking his hand. The Morian's skin felt warm and smooth like polished stone. Taiho led her away from the colony, toward the mountains in the distance. As they walked, Gia looked back one last time at the empty human buildings, the last connection to her kind on this strange world. She didn't know it then, but this moment would change everything, not just for her, but for 2 entire civilizations. 10. Years had passed since Gia arrived on Moria. She stood at the edge of Taiho's mountain home, looking down at the valley below. At 16, she was no longer the frightened child who had been left behind. Her dark hair hung in a long braid down her back, and her eyes had grown wise beyond her years. Life with Taiho had been strange, but good. The old Morian had taught her their language, both the clicking sounds they made with their mouths and the more important thought-sharing they used for deeper communication. He had shown her how to find food in the crystal forests and how to avoid the dangerous creatures that hunted at night. Most importantly, Taiho had helped her remember she was human. He had collected items from the abandoned colony, books, pictures, and small machines. Each night he would ask her to tell stories about Earth and her parents so she wouldn't forget where she came from. Your memories are precious, Taiho often told her through their mind link. They make you who you are. But lately Taiho had been growing weak. The shimmer in his skin had dulled, and his movements had slowed. Gia knew he was sick, but he wouldn't tell her what was wrong. That morning, she had found him unable to rise from his sleeping mat. I need special medicine, his thoughts whispered to her. From the city, Gia felt fear grip her heart. In 10 years, she had never gone to the Morian city. Taiho had always told her it was too dangerous. The council does not welcome outsiders, he had warned. They believe mixing with other species will destroy our way of life. But now, Taiho needed her. Gia packed a small bag with food and water. She put on the hooded cloak Taiho had made for her, which covered most of her human features. I'll be back soon, she promised, squeezing his hand. The journey to the city took 2 days. Gia traveled carefully, hiding whenever she heard others approaching. By the second evening, she saw the Morian capital rising before her, a sprawling structure that looked like it had grown rather than been built. Towers of living crystal stretched toward the sky, connected by bridges that seemed to be made of light. Gia pulled her hood lower and entered through a busy gate. Inside, hundreds of Morians moved about their daily lives. They were all like Taiho, tall with shimmering skin, but most were younger, their colors brighter and movements quicker. No, one paid attention to her at first. The hood hid her face and her cloak covered her arms and legs. As long as she didn't speak aloud, she might pass for a small Morian. She found the medicine market in the center of the city. Vendors displayed jars of glowing liquids and plants Gia had never seen before. But which one would help Taiho? Taking a risk, she approached an older vendor whose colors reminded her of Taiho. "I need medicine for an elder," she thought carefully, trying to project her thoughts as Taiho had taught her. His skin grows dull, and his strength fades. The vendor looked at her curiously. "Remove your hood, young one. I cannot help if I cannot see who asks." Gia hesitated, then slowly lowered her hood. The vendor's eyes widened. Around her, conversation stopped as nearby Morians turned to stare. "A human," someone said aloud, the clicking sounds harsh with surprise. Within moments, a crowd had gathered. Some looked curious, others afraid, and a few seemed angry. "How did you get here?" the vendor asked, his thoughts touched with fear. Before Gia could answer, the crowd parted. A tall Morian in formal attire approached. His skin shimmered with authority.